Negotiable Instruments Law, Act number 2031. This subject is not included this 2022 bar exam held last November. The subject is not included in the commercial law, but we may not know for the next November 2022 bar this negotiable instruments law shall be included. So, common forms of negotiable instruments. What are the most common forms of negotiable instruments? So, these are the promissory notes during college days, promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. Section 185 of the Negotiable Instruments Law. Promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. These are the common forms of negotiable instruments. Check. What is a check? It is a bill of exchange. So it's an exchange which is withdrawn on a bank and payable on demand. Drawn on a bank and payable on demand. Functions of negotiable instruments. So what are the functions? There are two functions of negotiable instruments, namely, they act as substitute for money. In fact, they provide more security and convenience as a medium of exchange. So, cashless, we will just only be carrying a slips of checks. We will just draw a check, fill in the needed informations there, and then give it as a payment, as a substitute for money. So you will be carrying cashless. It is more security because it has no value yet unless you will make a fill up and a signature on it. And convenience as a medium of exchange. They increase the purchasing medium in circulation. If the central bank issues 10 million in notes and coins, and businessmen issue 5 million worth of negotiable instruments, that will make a total of 15 million purchasing medium of exchange in circulation. So that's the purpose of negotiable instruments. Next, legal tender. What is a legal tender? As a review, a check is a form of bill of exchange. Bill of exchange drawn on a bank and payable on demand. While legal tender, what's that? It is a medium of exchange. Medium of exchange which the law compels the creditor to accept in payment of obligations. So, the law compels the creditor to accept it as a payment of obligations. Usually, it is backed up by precious metals like gold or silver, depending upon the standard adopted by the monetary and or banking authorities. At present, it is the gold standard. So, the legal tender, which the law compels the creditor to accept as a payment of obligations. Legal tender. Next, fiat money. What is a fiat money? Okay, fiat money, it is a legal tender also. Again, legal tender, it is a medium of exchange. Medium of exchange which compels the creditor to accept it. Fiat money is a legal tender. Legal tender money without any backing in precious metal. The element of compulsion is provided. The element of compulsion provided solely by the naked authority of the government issuing such medium of exchange like the Japanese Mickey Mouse money during the World War II. So that's the common example of fiat money. It's solely by the naked authority of a government. during those World War II. Principal features of negotiable instruments. What are the principal features of negotiable instruments? They are the following. First, the negotiability. Again, negotiable instruments law, it is more on about negotiability, which is that attribute of property whereby a bill, note, or check passes from one hand to another so as to give the transferee the right to hold the instrument and to collect the sum payable thereunder. So, negotiability passes from one holder to another. So, the recipient, once it holds by a person, he is already called as holder in due course. And he is allowed to, and he has the right to collect the sum payable thereunder. Payable under the bill, under the note, under the check. It is passes from one hand to another as to give the transferee the right to hold. So, giving the right, being a holder in due course. The effect of transfer by negotiation can make the transferee a holder in due course, who may have more rights than the transferor as distinguished from ordinary transfer like assignment. Again, the effect of transfer by negotiation can make the transferee, the one who is receiving, will be a holder in due course, who may have more rights than the transferor as distinguished from ordinary transfer. So the one who received the check, the bill, the note has more rights. He or she is already considered as holder in due course. Problem. A issued a check payable to the order of B in the amount of 10,000 pesos without B paying any consideration therefore. Again, A just only issued a check payable to the order of B in the amount of 10,000 without B paying any consideration thereof. So, with no exchange, B endorsed and delivered the check to C, who paid value therefore, but who had knowledge that B did not pay any consideration to A. So, C here in this case is paid the value of that check to B, and C in his knowledge that B did not pay any in consideration to A. Subsequently, C endorsed and delivered the check to D, who paid value therefore in good faith. So, D here has no idea that B did not pay in consideration to A. He just received the check. When D presented the check for payment to the drawee bank, the latter dishonored the same in view of the stop payment order given by A. Can D collect from A after making the necessary notice of dishonor? Explain briefly. So, in this situation, A issued a check payable to the order of B in the amount of 10,000. So, that check executed by A is worth of 10,000 payable to the order of B. So, it should be paid, that check should be paid to B. And B endorsed it to C. C has the knowledge that B did not pay in exchange to A for that check. So there is no contract of sale. Just only A issued a check to B. So now C also subsequently endorsed and delivered it to D, who accepted it, who paid value therefore in good faith. So now, when D presented already it to the drawee bank, the check was dishonored in view of the stop payment order given by A. Can D collect from A? Yes, D can collect from A, who cannot put up the personal defense of lack of consideration against D. So when it comes with negotiable instrument, it is common in a problem to make a defense of personal defense of lack of consideration against the holder. So D here can collect from A who cannot put up personal defense of lack of consideration against D. This is so because, unlike C, who did not become a holder in due course because of his knowledge of the absence of consideration. Again, this is because, unlike C, who did not become a holder in due course because of his knowledge of the absence of consideration. D is a holder in due course and is not liable to personal defense of lack of consideration. So again, if a person accepts a check in bad faith, having a knowledge of non-payment or non-paying or without in consideration, except in this situation, so C here is not a holder in due course. C is not a holder in due course, but D is a holder in due course because he received the check and paid for that check in good faith. So D is a holder in due course, and the personal defense of lack of consideration cannot be set up against D. A cannot make a personal defense of lack of consideration against D because D here is holder in due course. Make a defense of lack of consideration against D, but not with D because D is a holder in due course. Next, number 2, the first feature of negotiable instrument is the negotiability. Number two feature is that accumulation of secondary contracts, which takes place when endorsements are made at the back of the instrument. The principal contract appears at the face of the instrument as the instrument passes from one hand to another in the process of its negotiation. Secondary contracts are formed, thereby providing a greater chance for the instrument to be made good. Again, it's the accumulation of secondary contracts, accumulating as it being negotiated. Accumulation of secondary contracts which takes place when endorsements are made at the back of the instrument. The principal contract appears at the face of the instrument. As the instrument passes from one hand to another in the process of negotiation, secondary contracts are being formed, thereby providing a greater chance for the instrument to be made good. So, as the check, as the bill of exchange, or as the promissory note passes from one hand to the other, there is an accumulation of secondary contract which is being attached at the back of the instrument, at the back of the paper. Now, requisites of a negotiable instrument. What is a negotiable instrument? We talked already about check, legal tender, the features of negotiable instrument. But what is a negotiable instrument? It is an instrument that complies with the requirements of Section 1 of Negotiable Instruments Law. Namely, this is now the Section 1 of Negotiable Instruments Law. First, Section 1. Form of negotiable instruments. An instrument to be negotiable must conform to the following requisites. This is Section 1. Must conform with the following requisites. So it means to say these requisites must concur. It must be in writing, signed by the maker or the drawer. Writing and signed by the maker or the drawer. Must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum in certain money. So therefore, there must be a provision of payable to the order of to that person. So payable to the order of B. Unconditional means to say no condition. There is it's a promise, no condition. Unconditional must be payable on demand or at a fixed and determinable future time. Must be payable to order or to bearer. And where the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Again, must be in writing, signed by the maker and drawer, must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum of certain in money, payable on demand, payable to the order or to the bearer, and where the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named. So, this is now the comment from the court. Under section 1, paragraph A, the material used for a negotiable instrument must be convenient in substance and size. So the material used for a negotiable instrument must be convenient in substance, the paper itself, and size as to facilitate its transfer from one hand to another. So that's why it's like a bill, paper bill. The instrument must bear the signature of the drawer or maker. Signature means the symbol or mark which identifies the person making the symbol or mark. Any sign or symbol which can identify the person making it as his own will suffice. So it should be in writing with signature. Next, the promise or order contained in the instrument must not be subject to any condition. It's like a contract, a written contract with a promise, and such promise is unconditional. Contained in the instrument must not be subject to any condition. Such promise or order has to be complied with at all cost and by any means. The condition there, the promise must be complied with all costs and by any means. That is why a promise or order to pay out of a particular fund is not unconditional. So the order to pay off to the order of payoff. The reason is that the payment in such a case is subject to the availability of funds, which is therefore conditional. The same is true if the order or promise involves either cash or in kind, where the choice is given to the drawee. In this case, the order or promise is conditional because from the point of view of the payee or holder, the latter is not sure or certain as to what will be paid or delivered to him. Again, the same is true if the order or promise involves either cash or in kind. The same is true if the order or promise involves either cash or in kind, where the choice is given to the drawee. In this case, the order or promise is conditional, yes, because it involves cash or in kind, an option. So therefore, there is a condition. So the promise or order reflected in the instrument must be unconditional. Must be unconditional and must be complied with at all costs and by any means. It is different when the choice is given to the payee or holder, because in such a case, the latter is sure or certain as to what will be paid or delivered to him. Hence, in the last case, the order or promise must be unconditional. So again, the promise or order must be unconditional. The time of complying with the promise or order may be stated to be upon demand by the holder. So, upon demand by the holder. The instrument is payable on demand when it is so stated therein, or when no date of maturity is mentioned in the instrument. So it should be payable on demand, especially when no date of maturity is mentioned. So payable on demand. The instrument may be payable at a fixed future time. May be payable at a fixed future time. The example is when it is so stated in the instrument which is issued on a certain date that it is to be paid at a date after its issuance. So again, the time of complying the promise or order must be stated. May be stated to be made upon demand. It should be demand. And also, if there is no date fixed, then therefore it's a demand, but it can also be the instrument may be payable at a fixed future time. The example is when it is so stated in the instrument, which is issued on a certain date that it is to be paid at a date after its issuance. Determinable future time. What's that? Determinable is from the word determine. Future time means that the instrument is payable after its issuance. Payable after its issuance without stating any specific date in the future. It is payable after issuance without stating any specific date in the future. So determinable future time with payable after issuance. The future date can be determined by the terms of the instrument itself. An example is where the instrument is issued at a particular date and is said to be payable 30 days from the date, in which case the maturity date will be counted from the date of issue or 30 days thereafter. Again, the future date can be determined by the terms of the instrument itself. An example is where the instrument is issued at a particular date and is said to be payable 30 days from the date, in which case the maturity will be counted from the date of issue or 30 days thereafter. So there is a specific date. The instrument may also be stated to be payable 30 days from sight, in which case the instrument must be presented for acceptance in order to determine the date from which the 30-day period is to commence to run. In this case, presentment for acceptance is necessary. Presentment for acceptance is necessary when it comes with that the instrument is payable 30 days from sight. Once the instrument is payable 30 days from sight, it needs to be presented for acceptance. Whether or not the drawee accepts the instrument, the fact that the 30-day period starts to run from the date the instrument is presented for acceptance. So, once there is already presented for acceptance, the 30-day period will run. Or whether or not the drawee accepts the instrument, the fact is that 30-day period starts to run from the date the instrument is presented for acceptance. So again, whether or not the drawee will accept the instrument, whether or not the drawee accepts the instrument, the 30-day period will start from the day of presentment for acceptance. Just present it. After presenting it, the 30-day period will start to run. That is under determinable future time. The instrument may also be state payable 30 days from sight. Next, order or bearer. What's that? Order or bearer. Let's continue.